Alright, welcome everyone. Hare Krishna. We will continue our weekly discussions on the Bhagavad Gita. Let me start with some prayers. First of all, let me share my screen so that we can see the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And then I will start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, welcome everyone to people who are listening right now and people who will listen to this after the fact. We are continuing our weekly discussions and reading on the Bhagavad Gita. We finished the first chapter last month. Today we'll look at the second chapter. We looked at the first two verses of the second chapter. We'll continue looking at further verses and trying to see the structure. To give a quick recap, we saw in the first chapter talked about the lay of the land, right? How Arjuna and how the Pandava army and the Kaurava armies were laid out in the battlefield, right? The battlefield is set. Krishna is the charioteer. They are describing who is present on which side. The parties of the Pandava and the parties of the Kaurava. We saw various great fighters that were present on either side of the army, right? And then we saw that they started sounding their bugles, their trumpets and their conch shells. And the sound was so tumultuous that it gave goosebumps to Arjuna and everyone else present. In the midst of that sound, Arjuna asked Krishna, his charioteer, to take him into the middle of the army so that he can see who is arranged, who is present in the battlefield. He wanted to see who is where, who is situated at what point. And when Arjuna started looking, he started to see his fathers, such as Bhurishrava, his grandfathers, people like Bhishma, and people who are almost as if deserving respect as a grandfather, Somadatta. He saw his teachers, Dronacharya, Kripacharya. He saw his maternal uncles, Shalya, Shakuni. He saw his brothers, Duryodhan, Karna, Vikarna. He saw his sons there. He saw his grandsons. He saw his friends, such as Ashwathama. He saw his father-in-law, such as Drupad, and he saw his well-wishers. So, seeing all of them, Arjuna became bewildered. He became confused. Why? Because he suddenly realized that he is about to engage in a warfare where he might end up killing these people, or these people may end up killing Arjuna and his friends and his family members. So, being in such a situation, Arjuna was affected. He was mentally affected. Right? And then we saw that this is the immediate context of the Bhagavad Gita, and the broader context is that all of us as living entities, as jivas, as souls, as spirit beings, we all also face such situations in our life. And the instructions that Krishna gave to Arjuna are essentially the same instructions that apply in our lifetimes also. Because we also go through these experiences in our life. And how do we understand what is our true essential spiritual nature? Right, so we have previously talked about this in detail. We also saw the 4 reasons why Arjuna gives that why he does not want to fight. Right, we saw in the first chapter that from verses number 28 to 30 of the first chapter, Arjuna gives his first reason to not fight. He says that I am feeling compassion. Krishna, I cannot fight. My mouth is drying up, my body is trembling, my hairs are standing, my skin is burning. I cannot fight because they are my friends and my family members. I cannot kill them. So that was the first reason why Arjuna didn't want to fight. Then we looked at the second reason. So from verses 31 to 35 of the first chapter talked about the second reason of Arjuna. What's the second reason why Arjuna didn't want to fight? He says that I do not see any enjoyment in this victory because the people who I will enjoy this kingdom with will be killed. So I don't see why I should fight. Right? So he gives the second reason. Then he gives the third reason. The third reason he says is that I cannot fight because I will get sinful reactions. right? He says that when we engage in killing, then what happens is that we accumulate reactions, and these reactions will come and haunt us for lives, right? He talks about the 6 kinds of aggressors that are there: people who give poison, people who set fire to a house, people who attack with weapons, people who plunder riches, people who occupy land, and people who kidnap other people's wife. In Manu Smriti, there is an ancient text in India called Manu Smriti. So in Manu Smriti, the 8th canto and the 350th verse talks about these 6 kinds of aggressors. So Arjuna is saying that we become aggressors, Krishna, and we cannot fight because it will give us negative reactions, sinful reactions. We realize later, of course, Krishna explains to Arjuna that there won't be any sinful reactions in this war. Why? Because it is out of duty that you have to fight. As a Kshatriya, they have tried to evade war, they tried all peacemaking methods, but the evil-minded Duryodhana denied it all, rejected it all. So Krishna explains, but Arjuna, because he's in that situation, he's feeling. So he gives the third reason that I'll get sinful reactions. And then he gives the final reaction that when all the men will be dead, then the poor women, there won't be anybody to protect them. And when that happens, evil-minded people, evil-minded men will take advantage of these women and they will abuse them and they will create unwanted progeny. As a result, there will be a lot of chaos in the society. Therefore, I don't want to fight. So Arjuna gave 4 reasons to Krishna. First, I am feeling compassion from verses 28 to 30 of the first chapter. Then he says, I don't see any enjoyment from verses 31 to 35. Then he tells that I will get sinful reactions from verses 36 to 38. And then finally, he says that it will destroy our entire family, which is verses 39 to 43. As a result, Arjuna says that Krishna, I don't want to fight. He puts aside his bow and he says that better for me if they kill me unarmed rather than me killing them. We understand better. So this was spoken in the first chapter, right? And then we looked at the second chapter. So second chapter, we again go back to the context that Bhagavad Gita, part of the Bhagavad Gita, the discussion is happening between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. They are sitting in the palace of Dhritarashtra, where Sanjaya, he is a servant to Dhritarashtra, but he has a yogic power called the power of Durdarshan or divine vision, where he could see things that are happening at a distance. It is because of his guru. His guru is Vyasa, Ved Vyasa or Vyasadev, Maharshi Vyasa, who has written all of these Vedic scriptures and Vedic texts. So Sanjaya later thanks in the 18th chapter that I thank Vyasa that I have this power. So Sanjaya is informing Dhritarashtra, whose son Duryodhana is the leader of the Kauravas. What is he saying? That seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. So we saw last time that Krishna is being called as Madhusudana here. And we have seen so far that there are meanings to these various names of Krishna. The reason why he is called as Madhusudana is because Krishna killed a demon named Madhu. So in this context, the idea being that Krishna represents somebody who can kill the misunderstanding that Arjuna is facing. That's why Sanjaya is calling that Krishna as Madhusudana, because Krishna, being Madhusudana, being the killer of negative tendencies and vices, will clear of all the negative tendencies that Arjuna is experiencing. So we saw that verse last time, and then we saw the second verse. What's the second verse? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, right? What did Krishna say? My dear Arjun, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy. Right? So Krishna gives kind of a chastisement to Arjuna. He kind of alerts him. He says that, my dear Arjun, right? So because we see that there is friendly brotherhood between Krishna and Arjuna. They grew up together in one sense, right? They are cousins in one way, right? Krishna is the son of Vasudeva. Vasudev's sister is Kunti, and Kunti's son is Arjuna. So they are cousins in a bodily relationship in the world. So Krishna is telling, and Arjuna has been very dear to Krishna. So Krishna tells Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? Arjuna, I have known you all your life that you are a man of dharma. You understand, you stand for the right, for righteousness. How have these impurities come upon you that now you are unwilling to do your duty? right? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. If you knew the value of life, then you would engage in performing your duty. But here you are running away. So they don't lead to higher planets, but they lead to infamy, right? They don't lead to any accolades or any goodwill that you will establish in the society. Instead, it will lead to infamy that you have ran away from the war. So we saw all of that last time. Today we'll look at text 3 onwards. We'll continue our discussion for another 20-30 minutes. I think many people are unable to join because of the change in schedules and whatnot, but we'll keep continuing with our discussions. So we'll start with text 3 today. So text 3. I'll read the verse, then the synonyms, and then the translation. Klebhyam asmagama partha naitattvai upapadyate shudram hridaya dorbalyam tyaktya votishta parantapa. Synonyms. Klebhyam, impotence. Ma sma, do not. Gamaha, take to. Partha, O son of Pritha. Na, never. Etat, this. Tvai, unto you. Upapadyate, is befitting. Shudram, petty. Hridaya, of the heart. Dorbalyam, weakness. Tyaktva, giving up. Uttishta, get up. Paramtapa, O chastiser of the enemies. So we can already sense that Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna that, hey Arjuna, come on, get up. Translation, O son of Pritha. Pritha is another name of Kunti, right? So that's why Arjuna is also known as Partha, because he is the son of Pritha. Pritha is another name of Kunti. Do not yield to this degrading impotence. Klebhyam, do not yield to this impotence, this inability to fight. Do not give in to this. It does not become you. It does not at all suit you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Paramtapa. You who is known to chastise the enemy, you are such a great warrior. Give up this weakness of heart and arise. You are a warrior. You have to understand that this is your duty, right? So Krishna is explaining this point here that, my dear Arjun, what are you doing? What has happened to you? Hridaya durbalyam. How is your heart so soft now? Now is the time to fight. Look at this rascal Duryodhan. He has insulted your family. He has insulted your wife. Right? We have tried peacemaking with them. They did not listen. Krishna personally went to talk to Duryodhana that, stop, just give us 5 villages. We don't want the entire kingdom, because the Pandavas are also Kshatriyas, therefore it's their duty to rule. So, and they have the equal right just like you do. Well, they have more than equal right, because ideally the kingdom was supposed to go to them. But since your father Dhritarashtra became the king because Pandu was unable to lead the kingdom, therefore we are asking for an equal divide. But Duryodhana was unwilling to give up that. Then Krishna says that, alright, just give us five villages. We'll happily rule in these 5 villages. And Duryodhana says, I won't even give you the land that would fit on the tip of a needle. I even won't give you that. And Duryodhana was an envious person. We have previously established that he was envious. He was always insecure about whatever the Pandavas had, and he always wanted to have that. He was never satisfied in himself. And on top of that, he was evil-minded. He was always competing with them. He eyed their wife, Draupadi. He eyed their riches. He eyed their good fortune that they were so close to Krishna. So Duryodhana was never satisfied. So he said that I don't want to give you anything. And he even tried to capture Krishna and arrest Krishna. So they tried all means possible. And when nothing works, you have to come to war, right? Sam, Dam, Danda, right? Danda Bhed. You have to come. The Manusmriti talks about that you try all the ways. When it doesn't work, war is the only means. And now it has come to war. They have to fight. They have to establish for what is right. Because if they don't, then the following generations would always understand that, oh, there was evil in the society and it survived. So Krishna, he further explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam dharmasya tadatmanam srajami aham, that whenever and wherever there is a decline of religion and rise in a religion, I come and I try to establish paritranaya sadhunam Vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I come and I establish the true religious principles at that point in time. Therefore, he's telling Arjuna that, Arjuna, this is the time to fight. So arise, give up this petty weakness of the heart. We find a similar verse in other Vedic scriptures. I think it's from Kathopanishad. The verse is Uttisht Jagrat Prapya Varan Nibodhat, which is asking the living entities. It's a supplication to the living entities that arise, awake, and understand the true goal of human life. Don't be living under this idea that I am this body and this world is all my home and this is all it is. No, arise and understand what is your true nature in life, what is your true purpose in life. And it's the same kind of exhortation that we are seeing from Krishna towards Arjuna, that get up and fight. So in the purport, Prabhupada further explains, right, that Arjuna was addressed as Pritha. That means he's the son of Pritha. He was addressed as Partha, that is son of Pritha. Pritha is another name for Kunti. And Krishna is telling Arjuna that do not become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Fight. It's your time. It's your duty. So non-violence does not apply in this situation. You have to fight. Your magnanimity is from a weakness of heart. It would have found its place before, but now is not the time. Right? Let's look at verse number 4. Arjuna uvacha Katham bhishmam aham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhi pratiyotsyami pujarhav arisudana. Synonyms. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, Katham, how? Bhishmam, Bhishma, aham, I. Sankhya, in the fight. Dronam, Drona, cha, also. Madhusudana, O killer of Madhu. Ishubhi, with arrows. Pratityotsami, shall counterattack. Puja arahau, those who are worshipable. Arisudana, O killer of the enemies. So Arjuna now gives a counter argument to Krishna. When Krishna says fight, what is Arjuna saying? Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? So Arjuna again is looking on the other side of the army. And who does he see? He sees Bhishma, his great grandfather. Arjuna grew up playing in the arms of Bhishma. Arjuna grew up with Drona. Drona was his guru. Drona taught him everything. So here Arjuna is thinking, how can I counterattack with these people? They are worthy of my worship. Well, they are worthy of your worship. But Arjuna, Krishna's argument is, they have chosen the sides of the evil. And therefore, it is time that you fight for what is right. And here Prabhupada further explains that Bhishma and Dronacharya are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. That's the general etiquette, right? But this is a different time and a different place and a different circumstances. Therefore, you have to understand, Arjuna, that you have to fight. You have to understand. So Krishna further explains this. But we see that the arguments that Arjuna is making are very relevant arguments. They are not nonsensical arguments. They are relevant that I cannot fight. Look at them. They are worthy of my worship. You are asking me to kill them, Krishna. What can I do? So let's look at next verse. Verse number 5. Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum vaikshamapi haloke hatvartha kamamstu guru nihaiva Bhunjiya bhogan rudira pradigdhan. Synonyms. Gurun, the superiors. Ahatva, not killing. He, certainly. Maha anubhavan, great souls. Shreyaha, it is better. Bhoktum, to enjoy life. Bhaiksham, by begging. Api, even. Iha, in this life. Loke, in this world. Hatva, killing. Artha, gain. Kaman, desiring. Tu, but. Gurun, superiors. Iha, in this world. Eva, certainly. Bhunjiya, one has to enjoy. Bhogan, enjoyable things. Rudhira, blood. Pradigdhan, tainted with. So, Arjuna is giving further elaboration to his argument. What is he saying? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. So, following up with his previous argument that Krishna, you're asking me to fight Drona and Bhishma. I think it would be better that if I just beg, right? Bhaksham, by just begging, than to live at the cost of the lives of these great souls who are my teachers. They have taught me everything. Dronacharya taught me how to use the bow and arrow. How do you expect me to kill him with the same bow and arrow? Right? Even though desiring worldly gain, they might be on the side of Duryodhana. They might be desiring worldly gain or victory of Duryodhana. They are still my superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. How can I enjoy the kingdom after killing my teacher? So we see Arjuna is a very soft-hearted person. We know that he's a devotee of the Lord. He's a very pure-hearted person, and a pure-hearted person thinks this way. Why? Because they are compassionate to every living entity in the world. What to speak of their teachers? So Arjuna is showing these characteristics, but at the same time, he has to fight. Now, according to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. In this case, Bhishma and Drona, since they took the side of Duryodhana, since they did not speak up when Draupadi was being abused and harassed in the entire assembly, they were fit to be rejected because of their abominable action. So, under these circumstances, Prabhupada explains that they have lost the respectability of their teachers, of being teachers. Therefore, but still, Arjuna is still a devotee at heart, a kind-hearted person in his heart. Therefore, he still thinks that I cannot fight with them, Krishna. I really have no idea. So therefore Arjuna, despite understanding the scriptural codes, he still has immense respect for them, and that's why he says that I will beg. I will give up my duty as a Kshatriya and I'll beg, but I won't kill them. I won't fight with them. Right? So that's the further elaboration of his doubts and his confusion. We'll look at now verse number 6. So the verse number 6 is in continuation. So verse 4, 5 and 6 that we are looking at are kind of a continuation of his arguments from the first chapter. Oops, apologies. Verse number 6. Na chaitad vidma kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadiva na jayeyu yane vahatva na jiji vishamas tevasthita pramukhe dhritarashtraha. Na, nor, cha, also, etat, this, vidmaha, do we know, katarat, which, nah, for us, gariyaha, better, yat va, whether, jayema, we may conquer. Yadi, if, va, or, nah, us, jayeyu, they conquer, yan, those who, eva, certainly, hatva, by killing, na, never, jiji vishamaha, we would want to live. They, all of them, avasthita, are situated, pramukhe, in the front, dhritarashtraha, the sons of Dhritarashtra. So what is he saying now? Further elaboration. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. Krishna, we don't know. Should we conquer them and conquer our teachers? Or should we get conquered by them? I don't know what is better. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So again, he is confused. He is thinking, should I fight and dutifully fight and risk unnecessary violence? Or should I refrain and live by begging? Should I just avoid fighting? Or I don't even know if victory is certain, because they have great warriors, we have great warriors. But victory is also defeat, because if I fight and if I win, but I lose all my uncles and my cousins and my teachers. So I don't know what to do. So again, the point being that we get these situations in our life at times. Believe me, if we have not gotten it, it may come at certain point in time. That what do we do in life? We don't understand. Going forward is also painful. Staying where we are is also painful. What to do in such situations, right? How do we navigate? We have previously spoken that that the Bhagavad Gita presents spiritual solution to a material problem, right? We are living in this world and we experience material problems, and the Bhagavad Gita tells us that first of all, you're not the body that you think you are. You are a spirit soul. Therefore, you need a spiritual perspective to solve your problem. Albert Einstein very famously stated that you cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. Therefore, if a problem has appeared in your life, then you need a higher level of understanding to solve that problem. Now, how convoluted or confused the problem would become. Imagine the situation of Arjuna. He is faced with a situation where you have to kill, right? There's no other way. I mean, people engage in other kinds of activities, but here we are talking about killing, taking someone's life. What to speak of your teacher's life? And so he doesn't know. He is thoroughly confused. Although he was educated all his life, he understood. But again, this is such a situation that he doesn't know whether to fight and to establish dharma, what is right, or whether to give up and beg. He is even unsure about his duty, although all his life he has been a true warrior. We have seen so many examples of Arjuna fighting in different places, single-handedly defeating the armies of the demigods, the armies of other great warriors around the world. But here we are seeing Arjuna not knowing what to do in such a situation. That's the scope of the problem that Bhagavad Gita has. Right? Prabhupada further explains in the purport that he did not know whether to fight or risk violence. Fighting is the duty of the Kshatriya, but he doesn't know, is my cause justified? Or is this another kind of defeat for me? He thinks I will just beg. Right? He's asking Krishna and Krishna. So here the important principle, the idea of a guru appears. So the very next verse that we see, verse number 7. What happens when we are faced in such situations where we don't know what to do? At that point, we need guidance. At that point, we need guru. We need spiritual master. We need shastra. So that's the point that the Bhagavad Gita is making here. That when you are faced in such situations, you need a guru in your life. A guru can help you. A guru can guide you. Therefore, Arjuna, not knowing what to do, he finally, what does he do? He surrenders to Krishna. So the very next verse we look at is Arjuna surrendered to Krishna. Finally, Arjuna is saying that Krishna, please help me. I don't know what to do. And this shows his humility, and this shows that this is the way. This is how Bhagavad Gita establishes itself. That this knowledge is such superior knowledge. Krishna explains in the later chapters that this is param guhyatam. And this knowledge has been given by evam parampara praptam imam rajar shayo vidu. That it has been generated and passed through parampara system, through one teacher, through his disciples, then to his disciples, then to his disciples, and that's how this knowledge comes to us. And so the importance of surrendering to a guru, the importance of listening to a higher authority who can help us when we can't see a situation. And this is not different from even even in a material situation in our life where we don't understand something. Who do we go to? We talk to the experts, somebody who knows. We go to our parents for guidance, we go to our elders for guidance, right? We go to our mentors for guidance. So similarly, Arjuna, he is going up to Krishna, his ultimate guru, the ultimate authority that is available in the present world, in the entire universe, actually in all of the universes. What do we speak of the entire creation? In the entire creation, the authority is Krishna. So Arjuna goes to Krishna, and what does he say? Let's look at this verse. Karpanya dosho safata swabhava prichhami tvam dharma samudacheta yachresha nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasya teham shadimam tvam prapannam. What is Arjuna saying? It's a beautiful verse. Karpanya, of miserliness, dosha, by the weakness, upahata, being afflicted, swabhavaha, characteristics, prichhami, I am asking, tvam, unto you, dharma, religion, samudha, bewildered, chetaha, in heart, yat, what, shreya, all good, syat, maybe, nishchitam, confidently, bruhi, tell, tat, that, may, unto me, shishya, disciple, te, your, aham, I am, sadhi, just instruct, mam, me, tvam, unto you, prapannam, surrendered. What is Arjuna saying? Now I am confused about my duty. Why? Because I don't know whether to fight them and lose and then they capture us, or fight them and win, but there's no happiness in that? Or should I go and beg because I don't want to kill my teachers? Or should I kill my teachers and suffer reactions? I am confused. So now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness, right? This is a very important term called karpanya. Miserly weakness. We'll see why it's called as miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me, right? That's the attitude of why we approach a teacher, why we approach a guru. That, oh teacher, I don't know what to do with my life. Help me. Help me. And Krishna further explains that what is the mindset that we need to have to approach a guru, to approach a teacher. What does Krishna say? In the 4th chapter, there's a verse that you approach a teacher and what do? Pariprashnena sevaya ubdekshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattvadarshina tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya ubdekshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattvadarshina. That you ask questions. I don't know what is good for me. So Arjuna is doing exactly that. He's asking Krishna, you being my superior, you being my teacher, I don't know what to do. What is best for me? Now I am your disciple. Shishyashateham. I am your disciple. I'm not your cousin anymore. I'm not your friend anymore. I am your disciple. A very important relationship that Arjuna is establishing here. That now since I'm your disciple, I will follow whatever you say because I don't know what's good for me. Therefore, I surrender unto your intelligence and you tell me. A soul surrendered unto you, right? Prapannam, surrendered. Tvam, unto you. Please instruct me. Shadhi, Mam, just instruct me. Tell me what do I need to do. So this is a very important verse that shows that when we are faced in such situations, the Bhagavad Gita is telling us, find a guru. And it will give us a qualification of what kind of a guru do we go to. But here it is saying, there is another verse from Mundak Upanishad which says, Tat Vijnanartham sa gurum eva bhigachet samit pani yashrotriyam brahmanishtam. What kind of a guru do we find? Somebody who is brahmanishtam, who is a great devotee, who understands his relationship with the Lord. Somebody who has 3 kinds of knowledge, who has sambandha gyan, knowledge of his relationship with the world, the relationship of the world with the divine, and the relationship of the living entities with each other. Somebody who understands prayojana gyan, that means somebody who understands what is the end goal of life, and somebody who has abhideya gyan, who can tell you from how to go from where you are to where you need to go. How do you go from sambandha to prayojana? That is a guru, brahmanishtam. He's a great devotee. Tat vijnanartham sa gurum eva bhigachet samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. That's the guru that you need to approach, right? And how do we go? How do we find that guru? That's the question. So a very wise purport is given here, where Prabhupada explains that who is a guru, how do we understand who is a guru. So he gives references from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that who is a perplexed man. We saw that here Arjuna is saying that this is a miserly weakness. Now what does it mean, miserly? Karpanya or kripanaha. What is a miser? In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said that he is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of his life as a human, and thus who quits the world like cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. So the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that a miser is a person who does not use his human form of life to solve the problem, and instead, without realizing the true value of human life, he leaves the planet. We have seen this verse before in our conversations from the Panchatantra, right? From the Panchatantra. There is a book called Hitopadesh. In Hitopadesh, there is a saying, Ahara Nidra Bhai Maithunam Cha. That is, that Ahara, eating, Bhai, Ahara Nidra, sleeping, then Bhai, defending, and Maithun, sex or mating. Ahara Nidra Bhai Maithunam Cha. These 4 activities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are common between animals and humans. They both have it. But Dharmo hi tesho adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhi samanaha. That a human being is distinguished from an animal because a human being also uses his life to understand the Supreme. But a human being who does not use his life to understand the Supreme, he is like an animal. So a miserly man is somebody, a kripan, a karpanya that this verse talks about. Where did it go? The first line itself, karpanya. Who is a Karpanya? A Karpanya is a person who does not use this valuable human form of life to understand what is truly important, and he just gets lost in the glares and the glitters of this material world. That is a Karpanya. That therefore we have to understand what is the true value of human life. That's exactly what Arjuna is asking. What is my duty? What is best for me? What do I need to do? That's the question that we should be asking. That's the indication of Bhagavad Gita, that what is the best use of my time today? What can I do? Why does death happen? What happens after death? Right? Am I this body or am I a spirit soul? What is my true connection with the world? How can I truly be compassionate to all living entities in the world? How can I truly help others? How can I truly help myself? These are the kinds of questions that a human being should ask, rather than asking just simple questions that how can I eat better? How can I sleep better? The Hitopadesh says that even animals are asking that question. All animals are constantly looking for better sources of food, better sources of shelter. But a human being has prerogative. A human being can think beyond these things. And as a human being, we have to ask these bigger questions in life. We have looked at Greek philosophers previously, people such as Aristotle and Socrates. They have always asked this broader question: what is the value of life? Why are we here? Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I exist. Know thyself. What is the value of human life? Who am I? These are the kinds of questions that human beings should ask. And then the answers would come. That's how we approach a teacher. So first we have to put the question. One of my teacher always says that questions are like hooks. Because a question mark ends, if you see a question, it ends in a question mark, and that looks like a hook. Because when we ask a question, we throw this hook out in the world, and then the answer, we start to pull the answer towards us. So that's what it means by Karpanya. It's a very, very important point here, that miserly persons are those who waste time in society, country, material conception without realizing that what is the value of human life. Death will come to me, to my family members. What can I do to truly protect them? What can I do to truly protect myself? Why am I suffering through these things? Therefore, you approach a teacher, you approach a guru, you approach a spiritual master, and that spiritual master guides you. That's the point of Bhagavad Gita actually. That's one of the main important arguments of Bhagavad Gita. A very core point that we need to learn, that to gain higher knowledge, we need to go to an expert teacher, a guru. Okay, so we are in our last 5-10 minutes of this conversation. I'll quickly recap what we have seen today, and then I'll see if there is any question or any thoughts. Otherwise, we'll continue our discussion next time. So going back to the summary, we looked at the first chapter today. The first chapter talked about how Arjuna didn't want to fight, how the armies were laid out, and why Arjuna felt that. Just give me a second. Yeah, why? I was just checking if I was recording or not. I am. Why Arjuna didn't want to fight? He gave his arguments that he was feeling compassionate because he's seeing his family members. He doesn't see any victory in it. Even if he wins, he thinks that that's a loss for me. Then he says that I will get sinful reactions. We will get sinful reactions. And then he says that we will destroy family traditions. If we kill men, then who will protect the women? Then these other stupid leaders from around our countries, other places, they will come and they will take over. And they will abuse and harass our women and children. And as a result, who will protect our family lineage and our family values and morals? Who will protect them? Therefore, Krishna, I don't want to fight. And he continues giving those arguments, right? He says that I don't want to fight, right? Then Krishna explains that, hey Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? You know you are an elevated man, an educated man, a qualified person. How are you even thinking about these things? Do not yield to this degrading importance, right? Arise, awake and fight, O chastiser of the enemy. You know your prowess, you know your power, right? But Arjuna says that, but Krishna, how do I kill people like Bhishma and Drona? They are worthy of my worship. I cannot fight with them. I think it's better for me to beg rather than to live at the lives of these great souls. I know that they are engaged on the wrong side. I know that they didn't speak up. I know the scriptures tell me that if a teacher follows the negative side, the evil side, and performs an abominable action, then they are fit to be abandoned. But yet, Krishna, I still respect them. Therefore, even if we kill them, we will be tainted with blood. And then he says, nor I do not know if it's better for me to be conquered by them, for me to be killed by them? I don't know. He gives like his confusion is fourfold. Should I fight and risk negative reactions? Should I not fight and just beg? Should I just be captured by them and suffer? Should I fight for victory when we don't know if victory will come, because we have equal amount of warriors, equally capable warriors on both sides? Or should I win, but at what cost when a defeat comes? So all of these questions are riling up in his head while he's in the middle of the battlefield, right? Just like we are in the middle of our life, the battlefield of life, and we don't know what to do. We don't know what is truly important. So at that point, then Arjuna says, he gives his final argument. What does he say? That I am confused about my duty and I have lost all my composure of this miserly weakness. Why is it called miserly weakness? The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that miserly weakness means that when we are lost in temporary goals and we are not trying to solve the main problem in life. For example, let's say the example is that a person excuse me, a person is suffering from a major disease, let's say. Right? There's a major disease that needs to be solved first. Oh, let me give another example. Let's say a ship is sinking. A ship is sinking in an ocean. Now the captain has multiple things to do. Now what's the first thing? Now first of all, the thing is, he knows that people are hungry on the ship, right? He knows that the ship is also sinking. Now what is the first priority that he needs to take care of? Should he feed the people while the ship is sinking, or should he protect the ship from sinking and then feed the people, right? What is the priority? The priority is, of course, to save the ship, because if there's no ship, then what's the point of feeding people? So the first priority is to save the ship, make sure everybody's fine, and then feed them, and then take care of other needs. Similarly, a miser is somebody who sees that in this life there are major problems, such as the problem of birth and death, the problem of who am I, what am I supposed to do, the problem of how can I truly love every living entity in the world, how can I express true compassion for the world, not just humans but for plants and animals too, how can I be truly compassionate, right? These are the kinds of questions. So a miser is a person who avoids these questions and who starts solving temporary questions. That's what Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says is a miser. So Arjuna is saying that I am affected by this miserly weakness because I don't know what is best for me, right? You tell me what is best for me. So I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. So therefore, Krishna, please instruct me. I think we can look at verse number 8 also, because it is kind of in a similar vein. And then we'll look at from 9 onwards the next time. So let's look at quickly this verse 8 also. Nahi prapashyami mama panudyad yacho kamucho shanam indriyanam avapya bhuva mama asaptanam riddham rajyam suranam apichadipatyam. Na, do not. He, certainly. Prapashyami, I see. Mama, my. Apanudyat, can drive away. Yat, that which. Shokam, lamentation. Uchoshanam, drying up. Indriyanam, of the senses. Avapya, achieving. Bhumau, on the earth. Asaptanam, without rival. Riddham, prosperous. Rajyam, kingdom, Suranam, of the demigods, Api, even, Cha, also, Adhipatyam, supremacy. What is he saying? I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I don't know what to do. I cannot even see. My senses are dried up, Krishna. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So, material problem cannot be solved with a material solution. It needs a spiritual solution. That's what Arjuna is hinting, that even if I gain a material unrivaled kingdom, which is like demigods in heaven, just imagine like how the great demigods such as Indra, Varuna, how their kingdoms are. I can't even be satisfied with that. So Krishna, I don't know what to do. Please help me. Right? That's the final argument of Arjuna, that please help me. You are my guru. I am coming to you. So you help me solve the problem. Alright, so we'll look at we looked at verse from 3 to 8 today, right? I can find no means to drive away. You have to help me. I am lost. That's why you need a guru. When you don't know what to do, that's when you need divine guidance, divine intelligence. You need expert guidance from a superior, from an elder, from somebody who understands what is the goal of life. And that is a true guru who can truly explain. Not a guru who just gives you something that doesn't solve your ultimate problem, but somebody who speaks from the Shastra, somebody who presents the Shastra as it is, somebody who comes in one of the four lineages that we have talked about, right? The four sampradayas. Somebody who that person is a guru. Somebody who knows, who is Brahmanishtam. That person can solve the problem of life. So from next time onwards, we'll see from verse text 9 to further verses, and then we see Krishna's arguments. So verse 11 is where Krishna starts speaking his arguments, and the core philosophy of Bhagavad Gita begins. The second chapter is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, and in that summary from verse 11 onwards is a very important argument. So when I post this recording, and if you hear, I would request and urge that you join the next session onwards, because then we are truly getting into the core of the Bhagavad Gita. So with that in mind, we conclude. We do have Jaideep on the call. Thank you, Jaideep. He's my dear friend from my college time. It's been a long time. If there is any questions or thoughts, Jaideep, from your side, we can take that up. Otherwise, I'll just stop the recording and then we'll conclude the session. All right. Looks like no questions. Thank you very much for